When I was reborn, I made a silent vow. This time, I would have nothing to do with Ethan Jong. In my past life, my entire existence revolved around him. I followed him everywhere, sacrificed my education, and dedicated myself to his family. And in the end, even my own children turned against me. They urged me to divorce him so that, after my death, he could be buried beside his true love, Snowy Lou. This time, I took control. When Ethan said he wasn't going home for the holidays, I packed my bags and left without him. When he helped Snowy rent a house next door, I moved out. When he decided to stay on as a teacher, I applied to a university in the Northwest, far away from him. As I held my university acceptance letter, my hands trembled. In my past life, I had never even set foot in a university. Instead, I was married to Ethan within days, trapped in a cycle of domestic responsibilities while he built his career. Snowy and her daughter were always by his side, while I was left behind, raising his parents and our children alone. In the end, my son, my own flesh and blood, stood in front of me and said, "Mom, Dad has been miserable his whole life. If it weren't for you, he and Snowy's mother would have been together. You two don't belong together." In that moment, I realized I had lost everything. Even my death was insignificant to them. But fate gave me a second chance. This time, I wouldn't let Ethan Jong dictate my life. This time, I would live for myself. Chapter 1: The Rebirth. Pain. That was the first thing she felt when she opened her eyes. A dull ache spread through her body, a mix of exhaustion and confusion settling in her bones. The ceiling above was familiar, the tiny cracks in the plaster, the dim light filtering through the curtains. But something was wrong. It shouldn't be here. She shouldn't be here. Her breath quickened. She bolted upright, heart pounding in her chest as she looked around. The old wooden desk, the textbook stacked haphazardly, the delicate embroidery on the pillowcase, things she had long since abandoned. These belonged to a past she had left behind. She staggered out of bed, her hands trembling as she reached for the mirror hanging by the wardrobe. The face staring back at her wasn't the one she last remembered. Gone were the wrinkles etched by years of suffering, the hollow eyes drained of life. Instead, a youthful face stared back, clear, smooth, untouched by time. She gasped. Had she come back? Memories rushed forward like a flood. The years spent sacrificing everything for Ethan Jong. The countless times she swallowed her pride, endured humiliation, and watched as he prioritized Snowy Lou over her. The moment her own children turned their backs on her, whispering the cruelest words, "You don't belong with Dad." He has always loved Snowy's mother. The betrayal. The loneliness. The end. But now, she was here, back at the very beginning. Back before she made the biggest mistake of her life. Before she had married Ethan Jong. A slow, trembling breath escaped her lips. This was fate's second chance. And this time, she would not waste it. Her grip tightened on the mirror's edge. This time, she would live for herself. Chapter 2: Breaking Away. If her past life had taught her anything, it was that no one would save her but herself. The first step was to sever the ties that bound her to Ethan Jong. In her past life, she had never considered any other future. From childhood, it was decided, she would marry him. Everyone spoke of it as if it was set in stone. And she had believed them. Not this time. She stared at the university application form before her. The words swam in her vision. Northwest University. Far away from Ethan. From everything that had once trapped her. Her fingers hesitated over the paper, a sliver of doubt creeping in. Was she really allowed to do this? To carve her own path? A knock at the door startled her. Her teacher entered, a gentle smile on her face. "You've been staring at that form for a while now. Having second thoughts?" She shook her head firmly. No. I've made my decision. Her teacher's smile faltered slightly. You know, your engagement to Ethan. I'm not getting married, she interrupted, her voice steady. That was never my choice. A beat of silence stretched between them before her teacher let out a sigh. Then I'll support you. Relief flooded her chest. This was the first of many steps. And she would take each one without looking back. Chapter 3, A Taste of Freedom. Returning home felt different this time. In her past life, she had never questioned the life planned for her. She had walked the path laid out by others, believing it was her duty. But now, with her acceptance letter in hand, she felt a new sense of control, one she had never known before. She stepped into the house, the familiar scent of old wood and fresh tea filling the air. Her grandmother sat in her usual spot by the window, knitting quietly. At the sound of the door, the old woman looked up. You're back early, her grandmother said, her eyes scanning her face. Something on your mind? She hesitated before nodding. I got accepted into university. I'm leaving for the Northwest in a few weeks. Silence. The knitting needle stilled. Then, a sigh. You're really going, aren't you? She nodded. Yes. Her grandmother studied her for a long moment before nodding. Good. It's time you lived for yourself. She exhaled, tension she hadn't realized she was holding releasing from her shoulders. At least one person in her family supported her. But the peace didn't last. Not an hour later, the front door opened without warning. She stiffened as she recognized the voices, Ethan and Snowy. The two of them walked in like they owned the place, Snowy's daughter skipping happily beside them. They didn't even knock. She watched as Snowy moved around the house comfortably, like she belonged. Her hands curled into fists. Had they always been this shameless? Ethan barely looked at her as he spoke. We're planning to spend the holidays here. It's more convenient for us. Us? The word stung more than it should have. She forced herself to smile. That's nice. But I won't be here. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? I got into university, she said, meeting his gaze steadily. I'm leaving soon. A flicker of something crossed his face. Surprise? Annoyance? He quickly masked it. That's unexpected. Snowy tilted her head. You're leaving? That's sudden. But it's probably for the best. She smiled sweetly. Ethan and I were just talking about how I could use more space here. Something inside her snapped. This time, she wouldn't let them take everything from her. She turned to Ethan, her voice cold. You don't need to worry about me anymore. I won't be in your way. For the first time, Ethan seemed at a loss for words. She turned away before he could respond. She had wasted enough time in their shadow. This time, she was walking away. Chapter 4, Severing Ties. The moment Ethan and Snowy left, she knew she had to act fast. If she wanted to leave on her own terms, she had to be prepared. In her past life, she had nothing, no savings, no independence. Every decision had revolved around Ethan. This time, she wouldn't make the same mistake. She locked her bedroom door and sat down with a notebook. How much money do I have? What do I need to survive on my own? Her savings were pitiful. Most of the household money had always been controlled by Ethan's family. But she had a few small things, gifts from her parents before they passed, jewelry her grandmother had given her, and personal belongings she could sell. The next morning, she made a decision. She gathered the jewelry and a few valuable trinkets and headed to the marketplace. In the past, she never would have dared. She had always been told that selling personal belongings was shameful. But she didn't care anymore. She would do whatever it took to secure her freedom. At the pawn shop, the elderly owner eyed her items carefully. "You sure you want to sell these? Some of them look expensive." She nodded firmly. "Yes." He named a price, lower than what they were worth, but enough to get her started. She accepted without hesitation. With money in her hands, she felt a surge of relief. It wasn't much, but it was hers. But her victory was short-lived. When she returned home, her grandmother was waiting for her at the door. "Ethan came by while you were gone." Her stomach twisted. What did he want? Her grandmother sighed. He submitted a marriage report. The word sent a chill through her. A marriage report. In their town, if both families approved, a marriage could be registered without both parties needing to be present. Ethan had taken for granted that she would agree. Just like before. Her hands clenched into fists. Not this time. She looked her grandmother in the eyes. "I'm leaving. Tomorrow." Her grandmother hesitated but nodded. "Then you should go before it's too late." She packed her bags in silence that night. With each folded piece of clothing, each tucked-away book, she felt a sense of finality. This was it. She was cutting ties. Before going to bed, she wrote a short letter to Ethan. "Don't make decisions for me. I won't be your wife. Not in this life." The next morning, before dawn, she left the letter on the table and walked out the door, without looking back. Chapter 5: The Final Goodbye. The road to the Leong family estate was quiet in the early morning. She walked with purpose, her bag slung over her shoulder, gripping the letter she had written the night before. The Leongs had been close friends of her late parents, and they had played a significant role in arranging her engagement to Ethan. In her past life, she had never once questioned their decision. She had thought they were doing what was best for her. But now, she understood, no one had ever asked what she wanted. When she arrived at the Leong residence, a maid opened the door and led her inside. The house was just as she remembered, grand yet suffocating, filled with old traditions and expectations. Mrs. Leong sat in the living room, sipping tea. She was an elegant woman, always composed, always in control. When she saw her, she set her cup down carefully. "I heard you left home early this morning. What brings you here, child?" She took a deep breath. "I came to annul the engagement." Mrs. Leong's expression didn't change, but her grip on the teacup tightened. "You must be confused. You and Ethan have been engaged since childhood. It's already been decided." "No," she said firmly. "It was decided for me. I never agreed." A heavy silence filled the room. Mr. Leong, who had been listening from the corner, finally spoke. "This is a big decision, child." "Are you sure?" "Yes." Her voice didn't waver. "I'm leaving for university. I have no intention of marrying Ethan." Mrs. Leong sighed, setting her teacup down. "You don't understand, dear. Ethan is a good man. He has a stable career. Why throw that away for a reckless decision?" She clenched her fists. "If he's such a good man, then why did he never put me first? Why did I always come second to someone else? I refuse to spend my life in his shadow." For the first time, Mrs. Leong looked surprised. Perhaps she had expected resistance, but not this kind of defiance. Finally, Mr. Leong spoke again. "If this is truly your decision, then we won't stop you." Mrs. Leong turned to him in shock. "But she is her own person," he said simply. Then, looking at her, he added, "I hope you know what you're doing." She bowed respectfully. "Thank you for understanding." She turned to leave, her heart pounding. This was it. She was free. As she stepped outside, the morning sun felt different, brighter, warmer, filled with possibility. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, she belonged to herself. Chapter 6, Counting the Days. The days passed in a blur of quiet preparation. She had made her decision, and now all that was left was to wait for the moment she could finally leave. Each morning, she woke up earlier than usual, marking off the calendar hanging by her bedside. Every red X she placed over a passing day felt like another chain breaking free. She avoided Ethan as much as possible, retreating into her room when he came by. But she could feel his presence, his watchful gaze whenever they crossed paths. He sensed something was different. One evening, as she was folding her clothes and packing them into a suitcase, her younger cousin, Lily, peeked into her room. "You're really going, aren't you?" Lily asked, her voice hushed. She nodded. "Yes." Lily hesitated before stepping inside, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Aunt and Uncle still think you'll come to your senses. They don't believe you'll actually leave." She let out a soft sigh. "They'll believe it soon enough." Lily fidgeted with the hem of her dress. "And Ethan? What about him?" She met Lily's gaze, unflinching. "What about him?" Lily bit her lip. "I don't think he realizes you're serious. He's never had to fight for you because you were always there." She laughed bitterly. "Then maybe it's time he learned what it feels like to be left behind." That night, as she sat by her window, she heard footsteps approaching. A familiar voice broke the silence. "You've been avoiding me." She turned to find Ethan standing outside, hands in his pockets, looking at her window like he had something to say but didn't know how to start. She didn't answer. Instead, she let the silence stretch between them. Finally, he exhaled sharply. "I heard you went to the Leongs. What did you talk about?" She leaned against the windowsill. "I asked them to annul the engagement." His entire body stiffened. "You what?" "I don't want to marry you, Ethan," she said calmly, the words coming easier than she had expected. "I never did." A flicker of something crossed his face, confusion, disbelief, maybe even a hint of panic. "You're joking," he said, his voice uncertain. She shook her head. "I'm not. I've already been accepted into a university in the Northwest. I'm leaving soon." Ethan took a step forward, then stopped himself. His jaw clenched. "Since when? Why didn't you tell me?" She tilted her head. Would it have made a difference? His silence told her everything she needed to know. For so long, she had revolved around Ethan, waiting for him to see her. But he never did, not until now, when she was finally slipping through his fingers. She didn't stay to watch his reaction. Instead, she closed her window, turned off the light, and lay down. There was nothing left to say. Tomorrow would be another red X on her calendar. Another day closer to freedom. Chapter 7, The Unexpected Obstacle. The morning sunlight streamed through her window as she folded the last of her clothes into her suitcase. Her departure was only a few days away, and she could already taste freedom. But when she stepped out of her room that morning, a cold shock ran through her. Her room, her space, was no longer hers. Suitcases, boxes, and scattered clothes littered the floor. A child's pink dress hung over the chair, and a familiar floral-scented perfume clung to the air. Then she saw them. Snowy Lou stood in front of the closet, her delicate fingers brushing over the wooden doors like she was already claiming ownership. Beside her, a little girl, her daughter, sat on the bed, kicking her legs while clutching a stuffed rabbit. "What are you doing?" Her voice was eerily calm, but her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Snowy turned, offering a soft, practiced smile. "Oh, good morning. Ethan said you wouldn't mind. Since you're leaving soon, we thought it'd be best for Mia and me to settle in early." A slow, burning anger coiled inside her chest. This is still my room, she said, her voice steady but firm. Snowy sighed, feigning helplessness. I understand, but where else would we go? Ethan insisted we stay here since Mia needs stability. And he thought you'd be okay with this. Her nails dug into her palm. Ethan. Of course. He was making decisions for her again. She turned sharply on her heel, storming out of the house. She found Ethan outside, casually leaning against the fence, talking to an elderly neighbor. His relaxed demeanor sent a fresh wave of fury through her. Ethan. He turned, surprised by her tone. What's wrong? She stepped forward, her voice low and controlled. Why is Snowy in my room? Ethan blinked, as if the question was unexpected. Oh. I thought you'd already moved most of your things out. Since you're leaving, it made sense to. My room, she cut in, her tone like ice. I haven't left yet. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, I didn't think it'd be a big deal. Snowy and Mia needed a place, and I just thought. She laughed bitterly. Of course, you thought. But did you ever ask me? Ethan frowned. Why does it matter? You're leaving anyway. There it was. The carelessness. The assumption that she would simply go along with whatever he decided. She took a deep breath. You're right. I am leaving. And that's exactly why I won't waste another second arguing with you. Without another word, she turned and walked back inside. Snowy was still in her room, flipping through a book that wasn't hers. Get out. Snowy looked up, startled. Excuse me? She met her gaze without hesitation. I said get out. Snowy hesitated but, for the first time, saw something in her eyes that made her step back. Fine, Snowy murmured, gathering Mia's hand. But Ethan won't like this. She didn't care. Ethan's opinion had stopped matching the moment she chose herself. As she shut the door behind them, she took a deep breath. 3 more days. 3 more red XS. And then, she would be gone. Chapter 8, Ethan's Realization. Ethan sat on the front steps of the house, rubbing his temples. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over the yard, but his thoughts were elsewhere. The argument from earlier still rang in his ears. She had never spoken to him like that before. She had always been quiet, obedient, someone who never questioned him. She had followed him like a shadow, always waiting, always available. And yet, today, there had been no hesitation in her voice when she ordered Snowy out of her room. No pleading, no uncertainty, just cold, unwavering determination. For the first time, he realized something, she was slipping away. Ethan didn't understand why it bothered him so much. Wasn't this what he wanted? Hadn't he always assumed she would be there, quietly supporting him while he made his choices? But now, she was making her own choices. And he wasn't a part of them. Snowy appeared beside him, her arms crossed. She's changed, she said, her voice soft, but there was something sharp underneath. She's not the same girl who used to follow you everywhere. Ethan exhaled. Yeah. You should talk to her, Snowy suggested. Maybe she's just upset. She always listened to you before. He nodded slowly. Maybe Snowy was right. He had assumed this was just a phase, something that would pass. But deep down, something told him it wasn't. He found her in the backyard, standing beneath the old tree where they used to talk as kids. The wind lifted strands of her hair as she stared at the sky. Hey, he said, stepping closer. She didn't turn. What do you want, Ethan? Her voice was distant, as if she were speaking to a stranger. It unsettled him. I don't get it, he admitted. Why are you acting like this? She let out a soft, humorless laugh. You really don't get it, do you? He frowned. If this is about Snowy staying here. It's not just about that, she cut in. It's about everything. About how you always decide things for me. About how I've spent my whole life revolving around you while you never once stopped to think about me. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's not fair. No, she interrupted. You don't get to tell me what's fair. Not anymore. There was no anger in her voice. Just exhaustion. I'm leaving, Ethan, she said, turning to face him fully. And nothing you say will change that. For a moment, he saw something in her eyes, something unfamiliar. A quiet strength he had never noticed before. She wasn't bluffing. For the first time, a small sliver of panic crept into Ethan's chest. You're really going to leave? His voice was quieter now, almost hesitant. She nodded. I already have. And with that, she walked away, leaving him standing beneath the tree, watching her disappear inside. Ethan had always believed she would be there. That no matter what happened, she would stay. But now, as he stood alone in the fading sunlight, an unsettling thought crossed his mind. What if she never came back? Chapter 9, Departure Day. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh dew and distant wood smoke. The sun had barely risen when she closed her suitcase and took one last look around her room. It no longer felt like home. Everything was packed. Everything except the memories, those she couldn't take, nor did she want to. A soft knock at the door made her tense. She expected it to be her aunt, coming to check if she was ready, but when she opened it, Ethan stood there. He looked different. His usual confidence was absent, replaced by something hesitant, almost vulnerable. You're really leaving, he said. She didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Ethan stepped closer. Let me drive you back to the village. At least let me do that much. She shook her head. No. His jaw tightened. Why not? Because I don't want to owe you anything, she answered, her voice steady. Not anymore. A silence stretched between them, thick with words left unsaid. He exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. I don't get it, he muttered. After everything, you're just walking away? She tilted her head slightly. Shouldn't I? Ethan looked at her, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she saw regret in his eyes. But she refused to let it affect her. Take care, Ethan, she said simply. Then, without another word, she picked up her bag and walked past him. She didn't look back. At the bus station, she stood among travelers, students, families, workers heading to distant places. She clutched her ticket, her heart pounding. This was it. The bus arrived, hissing as the doors opened. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, climbing inside. As she found her seat, she caught sight of Ethan outside. He hadn't left. He stood by the entrance, hands in his pockets, watching her. For a moment, she wondered what he was thinking. Was he regretting anything? Was he realizing what he had lost? It didn't matter. She turned her gaze away as the bus pulled out of the station. The town faded into the distance. For the first time in her life, she felt truly free. Chapter 10, A New Beginning. The journey to the university was long, but with every passing mile, she felt lighter. She gazed out the window as the familiar roads gave way to unfamiliar landscapes, rolling hills, vast fields, and distant mountains. This was her fresh start, far away from Ethan, from expectations, from a life she never chose. When the bus finally pulled into the station near her university, she hesitated for just a moment before stepping off. The air was different here, brisk and filled with the excited chatter of students moving about. Large banners hung from streetlights, welcoming the incoming freshmen. She adjusted the strap of her bag and took a deep breath. This was it. The dormitories were bustling with activity. Students carried boxes, parents said tearful goodbyes, and new friendships were forming in every hallway. She walked through the corridors, clutching her room key, until she found the door marked 205. Inside, her roommate was already unpacking. A tall girl with short, wavy hair and bright eyes looked up as she entered. "Hey. You must be my roommate," the girl said with a wide smile. "I'm Lisa." She nodded. "Nice to meet you." She stopped herself. For so long, she had been Ethan Jong's fiancée, a name tied to someone else's life. But that was over. "I'm Lina," she said finally, using her own name with a sense of pride. Lisa grinned. "Well, Lina, welcome to university life. I hope you're ready for an adventure." The first few days were overwhelming. The campus was massive, filled with winding paths, towering buildings, and bustling cafeterias. The classrooms were different from anything she had known before, full of passionate professors and students eager to learn. She threw herself into her studies, determined to make the most of this second chance. She attended every lecture, took detailed notes, and stayed late in the library, losing herself in books. It was exhilarating. For the first time, she wasn't someone's shadow. She wasn't just a daughter-in-law, a wife, or a mother-in-waiting. She was a student, a learner, a young woman with a future she controlled. One evening, as she sat outside, flipping through her textbooks, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Are you doing okay?" She didn't have to guess who it was. Ethan. For a moment, she stared at the screen. A part of her was surprised he even cared to ask. But she had no reason to answer. She deleted the message and blocked the number. This was her new beginning. And she wouldn't let the past follow her here. Chapter 11, The Ghosts of the Past. Lina had expected her past to fade the moment she stepped into university life. But the past had a way of creeping back in, whispering its presence when she least expected it. Weeks passed, and she immersed herself in classes, assignments, and late-night study sessions. She found comfort in the routine, in the knowledge that she was finally working towards something for herself. Lisa, her roommate, introduced her to new friends, and for the first time in years, she laughed freely, unburdened by the weight of expectations. Yet, no matter how much she tried to erase Ethan Jong from her life, he refused to disappear completely. One afternoon, as she sat in the library, flipping through her notebook, her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. "Why won't you talk to me?" She clenched her jaw, her fingers tightening around the pen. Blocked. Again. But it didn't stop there. Letters began arriving in her dorm mailbox. She never opened them, but the sight of Ethan's handwriting sent a chill through her. Each letter was neatly addressed, his name scrawled on the return label. Why was he doing this? She had left him. She had walked away without looking back. Did he regret it? Did he finally realize she had existed beyond his shadow? The thought made her stomach turn. Regret meant nothing now. One evening, as she and Lisa walked back to their dorm after dinner, Lisa nudged her. "Hey, some guy was asking about you today," she said. Lina's steps faltered. "Who?" "Not sure. He was tall, kind of serious looking. He asked if you were here." Her heart pounded. It couldn't be. Ethan wouldn't come all this way, would he? She shook her head. "If he comes again, don't tell him anything." Lisa gave her a curious look but didn't push. Got it. That night, Lina sat on her bed, staring at the unopened letters stacked in her desk drawer. She had been ignoring them for weeks, but now, curiosity gnawed at her. What could he possibly have to say after all this time? Hesitantly, she picked up the first letter and tore it open. The words inside made her breath hitch. Snowy is pregnant. She's having a baby girl. You were right about everything. Her hands trembled as she read. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe I just wanted to tell someone. Maybe I wanted you to know that I was wrong. She squeezed her eyes shut. Wrong? He thought he was wrong now, after she had already left. Slowly, she folded the letter and put it back in the drawer. She didn't need his apologies. She didn't need his regrets. Ethan Jong was nothing more than a ghost of the past. And she would not let him haunt her future. Chapter 12, Ethan's Regret. Ethan Jong sat alone in his dimly lit office, staring at the unopened bottle of whiskey on his desk. The words in his own letter to Lena haunted him. Snowy is pregnant. She's having a baby girl. You were right about everything. He had sent the letter on impulse, unsure if she would even read it. He didn't know what he had expected, an answer, maybe, or just acknowledgement that she still cared enough to respond. But days passed, then weeks. Nothing. She had truly moved on. For the first time, Ethan wondered if he had made a mistake. His life should have been perfect. He had everything he had once thought he wanted, a stable teaching career, Snowy by his side, and soon, a daughter. Yet, something gnawed at him, a hollow ache that he couldn't shake. When Lena left, he hadn't thought much of it. He assumed she would return, just as she always did. But she hadn't. And that absence, her absence, became impossible to ignore. Snowy noticed it too. You've been distracted lately, she said one evening, running a hand over her stomach. Is something bothering you? He forced a smile. Just work. She studied him carefully. Or is it Lena? Ethan froze. I heard you've been trying to contact her. Snowy's voice was soft but firm. Why? He had no answer. Because he didn't know. Snowy sighed. She's not coming back, Ethan. I know. The words felt like a lie. She tilted her head, eyes filled with something he couldn't quite place, pity, maybe. Then why does it feel like you don't? Late at night, Ethan found himself scrolling through old messages, old photos, memories he had once dismissed as unimportant. Lena had always been there. Quietly, patiently. She had given up everything for him. And he had never once appreciated her. For years, he had believed he was the one making sacrifices. That he had given up a life with Snowy because of obligation. But now, he saw it clearly. Lena had been the one making the sacrifices. And he had been too blind to see it. The realization came too late. She had left, and for the first time, he understood, she wasn't coming back. And worse, she was happier without him. Chapter 13, A Twist of Fate. The streets of her hometown hadn't changed much. The same narrow roads, the same small shops, the same scent of freshly baked buns drifting from the corner bakery. Lena had almost forgotten how familiar it all felt. But this time, she wasn't here for nostalgia. She had returned for one reason, to visit her parents' graves and pay her respects before moving forward with her life. She had no intention of seeing Ethan Jong again. Yet fate had other plans. She was stepping out of a small convenience store when she heard a voice she hadn't heard in years. Lena. Her body tensed. The plastic bag in her hand crinkled as her grip tightened. She turned slowly, already knowing who she would see. Ethan stood a few feet away, looking different from the man she had once known. He seemed older, though only a few years had passed. The usual confidence in his eyes had dimmed, replaced with something else, regret. She had imagined this moment before. In her mind, she had rehearsed all the things she would say to him if they ever met again. But standing in front of him now, she felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just nothing. Ethan took a hesitant step closer. You look different. She raised an eyebrow. I should. I'm not the same person I used to be. He gave a weak smile. I know. For a moment, silence stretched between them. The weight of their past lingered in the air, unspoken but present. Lena took a breath. Why are you here, Ethan? He hesitated. I don't know. She let out a small, humorless laugh. That sounds about right. You never knew, did you? His expression tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? She crossed her arms, studying him. You knew what you wanted back then. And it wasn't me. Ethan looked away. I didn't realize. That I mattered, she finished for him. That I wasn't just some convenient piece in your life. He said nothing. She sighed. Look, Ethan. I don't hate you. I did, for a long time. But not anymore. Because I've moved on. And you should too. He met her gaze, something desperate flickering in his eyes. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Lena felt a pang of something, pity, maybe. But it didn't change anything. She nodded. Thank you. I hope you find happiness, Ethan. But I won't be a part of it. With that, she turned and walked away. And for the first time, she didn't look back. Chapter 14, The Ultimate Closure. Lena had always imagined what true closure would feel like. Would it be a dramatic moment, filled with fiery words and lingering emotions? Or would it be a quiet, simple realization that she no longer cared? Now, standing at the train station, preparing to leave her hometown behind once more, she finally had her answer. It was peace. She had spent the morning at her parents' graves, telling them about her new life, her studies, and her plans for the future. For the first time, she didn't cry. She knew they would be proud of her. And now, as she waited for her train, the past no longer felt like a weight on her shoulders. But then, a familiar voice shattered the moment. Lena. She turned to see Ethan standing at the platform's edge, breathing heavily as if he had run to catch up with her. His eyes held something raw, something desperate. She sighed. Ethan, what are you doing here? I couldn't let you leave without saying this, he said. I need you to know, losing you changed me. She gave him a small, sad smile. Ethan, you never really had me to begin with. I know, he admitted, his voice quieter now. But I was a fool. I took you for granted. I thought you'd always be there. Lena nodded slowly. I used to think that too. She stepped forward, looking at him not with anger, not with love, but with understanding. I'm glad you finally see it. But Ethan, we can't rewrite the past. And I wouldn't want to. Ethan swallowed hard. What if I want to fix things? She shook her head. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. Some things are just meant to end. He exhaled, shoulders slumping. So this is it? Yes, she said, gently but firmly. This is it. The train's whistle echoed through the station. Lena picked up her bag and turned toward the train. Before she boarded, she looked back one last time. Goodbye, Ethan. This time, she wasn't just leaving him behind. She was leaving behind every version of herself that had ever lived in his shadow. And as the train pulled away, she smiled. She was finally free. Chapter 15, The Future She Deserves. The university auditorium was packed, the air buzzing with excitement. Students in black gowns and caps filled the rows, their faces a mix of nervous anticipation and joy. Families sat proudly in the audience, cheering for their loved ones. Lena stood among them, waiting for her turn to walk across the stage. She had imagined this moment so many times. In her past life, it had been nothing but a distant dream, an impossible wish buried beneath the weight of marriage, duty, and regret. But this time, she had made it happen. This time, she had chosen herself. As the university dean called her name, she took a deep breath and stepped forward. Each step felt like a victory, a quiet but powerful declaration that she had rewritten her fate. She accepted her diploma with steady hands, her heart swelling with pride. As she turned to face the crowd, her eyes found a familiar face, Professor Jong, the one who had encouraged her to apply to university in the first place. He gave her a small nod, approval shining in his eyes. She smiled. This was just the beginning. After the ceremony, she walked through the campus, soaking in every moment. She had made real friends here, people who valued her for who she was, not for what she could sacrifice. She had discovered passions she never knew she had: literature, philosophy, the power of her own voice. And most importantly, she had learned to love herself. As she stood at the entrance of the university, staring at the wide road ahead, she realized she no longer needed to look back. She wasn't the girl who had begged for love. She wasn't the woman who had sacrificed herself for a man who never saw her. She was Lena. A woman with a future. A woman with dreams. A woman who had won her own life back. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. And this time, she was walking toward a future of her own making. Know your turn. If you enjoyed Lena's journey of resilience, self-discovery, and empowerment, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. What would you do if you got a second chance at life? Would you make different choices? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And remember, your life is yours to shape. Make choices that bring you happiness and fulfillment. See you in the next story.